I have nowhere to go. I let her in and realized she came here on purpose. The first time I heard her voice, the sky was already getting ready to break. I was in my workshop, sanding a piece of cedar for a cabinet door, when the sound of tires on gravel cut through the quiet. Out here, in the woods outside a small town in Washington, you learn the sound of every truck that belongs. This one didn't. I set the sander down, wiped my hands on my jeans, and walked out onto the front porch. You touch it, we fight. Her lips twitched like she almost smiled. The storm hit that night hard enough to shake the rafters. Rain hammered the roof. Thunder rolled through the hills like somebody dropping boulders. I lay awake anyway, not because of the storm, but because I could hear soft footsteps upstairs. Back and forth, back and forth. The sound of someone waiting for a knock that might end everything. By morning, the rain had slowed to a steady, gray sheet. The bridge would be out for at least a day, maybe more. We were stuck together. When I came downstairs, she was already in the kitchen, standing by the stove in one of my oversized flannel shirts, sleeves rolled, leggings, bare feet. The silk was gone. She had tied her hair up in a messy knot. Her shoulders were still tight, but her movements were steadier. I hope you don't mind, she said. I can't function without coffee. Coffee's fine, I said, pulling eggs from the fridge. We need rules. She straightened like she was in a meeting. Okay, she said. 1, I said. You stay inside the clearing. No walking the road, no standing at the tree line. If he's hunting you, we don't give him a clear view. Agreed, she said without hesitation. 2, I went on. You tell me everything. No surprises. If he calls, texts, sends a carrier pigeon, I know immediately. Done, she said. 3, you stay out of my workshop unless the house is on fire. A beat of silence. Then, that's fair. I cracked eggs into the cast iron skillet and felt her eyes on my hands. When she caught herself watching, she looked away fast, like she didn't want me to see that she noticed anything about me. Her phone buzzed an hour later. The sound was sharp in the quiet. She flinched so hard the mug in her hand rattled against the counter. I crossed the room in 3 long steps. Him? I asked. She didn't trust her voice. She just handed me the phone. A photo filled the screen. The entrance sign for the state park, 10 miles away, the one that sat at the start of the road that led toward my land. No text, no caption, just that shot. He's tracking the phone, I said. I turned off GPS, she said, panic edging into her words. I shut it off. GPS is a courtesy, I said. He does not need your permission. I didn't waste time lecturing. I pulled an old ammo box from the lower cabinet. Steel gasket. Lined the bottom with folded aluminum foil from the drawer. Not fancy, just enough to choke the signal. Phone goes in here unless you're dialing 911, I said. Her eyes widened. You just have that sitting around? She asked. I have a lot of things, I said. She stared at the box for half a second, then dropped the phone inside. I latched it and put it on the highest shelf. Now show me everything, I said. Text messages, emails, voicemails, any threats, any pictures. All of it. She hesitated. I watched her fight herself, then give in. She unlocked her cloud storage and held the screen out like she was handing me her ribs. While she scrolled, I read. Not for drama. For dates. For patterns. For the way the language changed as this guy got more desperate and more mean. People break along lines, same as wood and steel. I had spent years reading those lines. When I was done, I set the phone back in the box and shut it again. I'm checking the perimeter, I said. I pulled on my boots, grabbed my heavy flashlight and the ring of keys for my trail cameras. By noon I had walked the tree line, checked for tracks, and moved 2 cameras so they watched the driveway choke point and the service road. I turned my truck so the dash cam faced the gate dead on. When I came back inside, Elena was sitting on the lower step of the loft stairs with her knees pulled up, arms wrapped around them. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I brought this to your doorstep. You came here because you wanted to stay alive, I said, setting the flashlight down. So let me do my job. The first days were rough. She wasn't used to being still. I wasn't used to sharing air. She reorganized my pantry on Tuesday. I put it back on Wednesday. She tried to help stack firewood and got a splinter deep under her nail. I soaked her finger, used tweezers and a magnifier while she stared at the ceiling and refused to make a sound. You can curse, I said. If I start, I won't stop, she said through her teeth. The real clash came on Friday. I came in from the workshop, covered in sawdust, and found her in my living room on a video call. Her laptop sat open on the table. Blueprints were spread out like a second table. Cheaper steel will compromise the frame, she was saying, voice sharp and clean. I don't care what the budget says. If it fails, it's my license. She ended the call and turned, already braced. I thought you were working, she said. Lunch, I said. I stepped closer to the plans, scanned them once, then tapped a spot on the page. The soil here will shift after heavy rain, I said. You need deep pilings, not a slab, or you'll be back in 5 years when that corner drops. Her eyes narrowed. You know soil grades, she said slowly. I build houses that survive when the hill decides to move, I said. I tapped the same corner. This fails here. She swallowed, and a faint color rose in her neck. You're right, she said. That night, when a gust slammed a swollen window frame upstairs, and she fought it with both hands, she cursed under her breath. I walked up, close enough that she had to step back for me to pass. Move, I said. I set one hand on the frame, one on the sash, and pushed where the wood wanted to go instead of where it looked like it should. The window slid open with a clean, easy sound. She let out a slow breath. Don't force it, I said. Find the pressure points. Her eyes stayed on mine for a heartbeat. I will, she said. That night, she paced less. Out here, storms move fast. So does quiet. So does whatever was already starting to build between us. Even while the real danger was still out there, somewhere on the other side of the washed-out bridge, looking for a way in. The night the wind tried to rip my roof off, I realized how fast she had become part of my plans. The gale came in out of nowhere. 1 minute the cabin was quiet. The next, the trees were bending, and something heavy slammed against the back of the house. Glass shattered. Water started pouring somewhere it should never pour. I was out of bed and in the hall before my eyes fully adjusted. Elena was already there. She stood barefoot with a flashlight in her hand, hair loose around her face, heart pounding so hard I could see it in her throat. But she wasn't screaming. She wasn't frozen. She was alert. What was that? She asked. Skylight, I said. Mudroom. Then I'm helping. Stay here, I said by reflex. No, she replied, steady. I'm helping. We stepped into cold, driving rain. A branch had punched through the small skylight over the mudroom. Broken glass sparkled on the wet tile. Water poured in like someone had turned a hose on full. Hold the light, I shouted over the wind. She planted her feet and lifted the beam toward the roof. I hauled the ladder in place, grabbed a tarp, nails, and the hammer, and climbed into the dark. The rungs were slick. The wind kept trying to throw the tarp back into my face. I timed my swings between gusts, one hand holding, one hand hitting nails into wet wood. The tarp fought like a sail. I pinned it anyway. When I came down, soaked through, she met me with a towel already in her hands. Her eyes ran over my arms and shoulders fast, checking for blood like she didn't even know she was doing it. You're bleeding, she said, pointing to a scrape on my forearm. It's nothing, I said. Silas. She said my name like it already lived in her mouth. Thank you. Inside, the lights flickered and died. The storm had taken the power with it. Stay there, I said. I have backups. I moved through the dark cabin by memory, lit a lantern on the mantel, and carried the soft light back to the main room. She was still exactly where I left her. We sat by the fireplace while the wind screamed around the walls. I built a fire with one match. Flame caught, then grew, throwing warm light across her face. Her shoulders loosened a little, like the heat was getting under her skin. You're really good at fixing things, she said. Things are honest, I said. They break where you can see it. And people? She asked. I watched the fire for a moment. People hide the cracks, I said. She stared into the flames like she knew exactly what that felt like. The next morning, I didn't make her tea or say some soft line. I gave her a plan. I cleared the kitchen table and spread out my old topo map of the land. I marked 3 routes with a pencil. 1 down the creek bed, I said. 1 through the cedar stand. 1 straight up to the ridge where the radio catches signal. She watched my hand move. If he comes up the road again, I said, you don't freeze. You move. Elena frowned. Move where? We're here. I tapped the map. Crawl space under the mudroom, I said. It's vented and hidden. You take this. I set my spare handheld radio on the table. Channel 3, I said. You press. You speak short and clear. She picked it up like it was heavier than plastic. I've never used one of these, she said. Then you're going to, I said. I leaned closer. Say it. She hesitated like her pride and fear were wrestling. Then she pressed the button. Silas, channel 3. Copy, she said. The second radio on my belt crackled. Copy, I answered. Her eyes widened at hearing my voice come through the speaker. That's the point, I said. You don't wait for courage. You build muscle memory. I drilled her twice more, then again. Not gentle. Effective. By the last time, her thumb went to the button without shaking. Later, I slid under her sedan with a headlamp. Mud and gravel had sprayed all over the undercarriage. A line had shaken loose. I tightened the clamp, reset a fuse, cleaned the battery terminals. She stood at the edge of the driveway, arms folded tight, watching me like she did not know what to do with a man who just fixed problems instead of arguing about them. It'll start now, I said, rolling out from under the car and wiping my hands on a rag. But you're not driving it out alone. I wasn't planning to, she said. Good. By dusk, I had wired the clearing like a job site. A motion light on the porch corner. A thin bell line across the back trail, running to a steel chime under the eave. 2 more trail cams aimed low at plate level. A metal tool chest by the front door with a flashlight, spare radio, and batteries, ready in the first 30 seconds. Elena watched from the porch rail. You do this for everyone? She asked. I didn't look up from the latch I was tightening. No, I said. For me. For the problem. I clicked the latch shut. You just happened to be standing in the middle of it. Her mouth curved, small and real, like she understood the language. That night, she came halfway down the loft stairs in socks, stopped on the second step, and looked at me across the room. Silas, she said. I looked up from the book I wasn't really reading. Thank you for treating me like I can learn, she said. Not like I'm just breakable. I held her gaze. You can learn, I said. She nodded and went back up. The quiet after that felt earned. By week 3, the bridge was passable again. The road was open. She didn't leave. My car needs a part, she said one morning, eyes on her laptop. She didn't meet my eyes when she said it. I didn't call her on it. I just drove into town for supplies. It was 40 minutes on gravel to the general store. The bell over the door rang when I stepped inside. Martha behind the counter looked me over like I was a walking news headline. You got a visitor up there, Silas? She asked as she rang up nails and coffee. Friend of the family, I said. Her mouth twitched. Well, some fancy lawyer came through yesterday asking about a missing woman, she said. Had a photo. Wanted to know if anybody had seen a city girl up your way. My grip tightened on the paper bag. What did you say? I asked. Told him I don't see a soul except you and the delivery trucks, she said. She slid a business card across the counter. But he left this. Julian Thorne. Private equity. The kind of money that hires patience. Outside, in the small gravel lot, a man in a clean coat stepped out from between 2 pickups like he had been waiting for me. Not Julian. A messenger. Shoes too spotless for this town. Silas Ward, he asked. I didn't answer. I just stared at him until he swallowed. I'm representing Mr. Thorne, he said quickly. He's concerned about Ms. Elena. He just wants to be sure she's safe. He's willing to compensate you for— Stop, I said, holding up a hand. I did not raise my voice. I did not step back. You don't come onto my land, I said. You don't question my neighbors. You don't throw money at a stranger to get to a terrified woman. He tried to smile like we were negotiating. We can be reasonable, he said. Mr. Thorne is willing to— For what? I asked. For me breaking a protective order? For selling out someone you haven't even met? His smile faded. I pulled my phone out and showed him a photo I had taken of the signs at my gate. No trespassing. Video surveillance. I have cameras, I said. If your client steps past my gate again, I don't call you. I call the sheriff and the county prosecutor. The man's jaw tightened. You're making a mistake, he said. I shrugged. Then it will be yours to pay for, I said. He left faster than he had walked in. I drove back up the mountain like the road was on fire. When I turned into my clearing, Elena was on the porch. Sunlight hit her hair. The air felt calm for the first time in days. Her suitcase stood beside her again, upright, one hand resting on the handle like it was a habit she couldn't shake. There was a man at the bottom of the steps. Sheriff Miller. My chest loosened a little. Not relaxed. Just recalculated. I parked, closed the door, and walked up. Silas, Miller said, tipping his hat. This young lady tells me you're refurbishing the guest lodge. Elena lifted her chin. I'm his consultant. She said. The lie came out smooth, like she'd signed it. Miller's eyes moved from her to me. That's so, he asked. I called you, I said. Not to scare her. To make it official. He's in town. Miller's mouth hardened. Yeah, he said. Martha told me. I've got a deputy watching the highway. Bring me the paperwork tomorrow. We'll file for an extension here too. Elena stepped closer to my side. Not touching, just standing where the ground felt steadier. When Miller left, she stayed on the porch, looking at me, one hand still on that suitcase. You didn't have to call him, she said quietly. I don't hide problems, I said. I solve them. Her eyes searched my face. Then she lifted her hand and set her palm flat against my chest, right over my heartbeat, like she was checking for proof. I'm not leaving, she said. Not yet. I'm not asking you to, I answered. She moved in closer, fingers curling lightly into my shirt. A question and a claim at the same time. If you're going to do something, she whispered, do it. I didn't move for 1 second. I let the choice hang in the air. Then she gave the smallest nod. So I leaned down and kissed her. Once. Sure and controlled. She kissed me back without hesitation. My phone rang. Sheriff Miller. I pulled away, breath tight in my chest, and answered. He's been spotted, Miller said. Heading up your service road. And he's got a buddy with him. Lights out, I said. By the time I hung up, Elena was already moving toward the switches. This time, when the danger came up the hill, she was not the woman who had stood on my porch shaking. She was the woman who knew where the crawl space was, which radio channel to use, and exactly who she trusted to stand between her and the storm. By the time the sun went down, the cabin was dark and ready. Upstairs, I told Elena. Lock the bedroom. Do not come out unless I call you. Silas, she said. Go, I said. She went. I heard her feet on the loft stairs, then the soft click of a door. I moved through the house fast. Main lights off. Motion light at the corner unplugged, so it wouldn't flare and give me away. Trail cam feed up on my small monitor in the workshop. Radio on my belt. Shotgun from the safe in my hands. Bear spray clipped to my pocket. 2 bright beams showed up on the camera feed. Headlights crawling up the service road where nobody should be at night. I stepped out the back door and slipped into the trees. The ground was wet and soft from the last rain. The pines broke the wind and hid my shape. I knew every root and stone out here. This land taught me how to move quiet. At the gate, a dark SUV rolled to a stop. 2 men climbed out. Even in the glare from their own headlights, I recognized one of them from the photo Elena showed me. Julian. Expensive coat. Clean shoes. Anger in the way he carried his shoulders, like the world had offended him and he was here to collect. His buddy went straight to the lock with bolt cutters. I racked the shotgun. The sound cracked across the clearing like thunder. That is far enough, I called out, voice level. They froze. Julian squinted into the dark. Elena, he called. Is that you? Baby, it's me. Come on, this is crazy. Let me in. I am not Elena, I said, the chisel down. Why? I asked. Because he knows where I am now, she said. If I stay, I put you in danger. He will come back. He will burn your home down to get to me. I stepped closer until there was only 1 step between us. Let him try, I said. Her eyes flashed with anger and fear all mixed together. This is your home, Silas, she said. You built this with your own hands. I am not letting him tear it apart because of me. How about we don't let him tear apart anything? I said. We go to town. We file what we have. You put your evidence in the system. I put mine on the record. We stop treating this like a private fight and start treating it like what it is. She looked at me for a long second. Okay, she said. We took my truck. I drove with the dash cam running, like always. Habit. Proof. Insurance. Call it what you want. At the sheriff's station, the air smelled like coffee and old paper. The front chairs were empty. The fluorescent lights hummed. Julian was already there. He sat next, different weight in the air. The threat was not gone. But it was not just ours anymore. It was in the system. On record. No longer a private storm. Elena walked around the living room, fingertips brushing the mantel, the back of the couch, the edge of the table, like she was memorizing the space. I went to the kitchen and started dinner because chopping onions and searing meat kept my hands busy when my head tried to run in circles. Silas, she said from the doorway. Dinner is in 10, I said without turning. I called my sister in Seattle, she said. I can stay with her until the trial. My knife paused for 1 heartbeat. Then I kept cutting. Okay, I said. It makes sense, she added quickly. I need to be near the lawyers. The courthouse. I need to talk to my firm. It is the smart move. Sure, I said. She stepped closer. You were incredible today, she said. I finally turned and looked at her. I did not do it for praise, I said. I know, she said. Her voice softened. You did it because once someone is under your roof, you do not abandon them. That landed deep. The next morning, her suitcase was by the door again. This time, I loaded it into her car myself. I checked the oil. I checked the tires. I tightened the battery terminals even though they were already tight. It was the only way I knew to say what I wanted without begging. You have a full tank, I said. Thank you, she said. She was back in her blazer and heels, city armor on again, but the way she stood was different. There was more choice in it now, less fear. She opened the driver's door, then stopped and looked at the cabin, the porch, the clearing. Then she looked at me. You know, she said slowly, I run a consulting business. I can work from anywhere with Wi-Fi. Is that so? I asked. And I noticed your kitchen is a mess, she said. Your workflow is terrible. It needs a full redesign. It might take 50 years. I looked at the suitcase in the car. At her. I drag sawdust in every day, I said. I have a vacuum, she said. I do not talk much, I said. I talk enough for both of us, she answered. She reached out and took my hand out of my pocket, lacing her fingers through mine. Her hand was warm and sure. I had nowhere to go, she said, repeating her first words on my porch. Except here. I squeezed her hand once. Then bring your bag back inside, I said. It is going to rain. Her smile this time reached all the way to her eyes. When she rolled the suitcase back up the ramp, the sound of the wheels on the boards felt different. The first time she came here, that suitcase had sounded like trouble. This time it sounded like a decision. She pulled it over the threshold. I stepped in after her and shut the door. The lock slid home with a clean, solid click. Take off your shoes, I said. She raised an eyebrow. House rule, she asked. Yeah, I said. If you were staying. She smiled and kicked off her heels. She lined them up by the mat with careful hands, like she was placing something down for good, not just for a night. Then she shrugged out of the blazer and hung it on a hook by the door that had never held anything of mine. I am staying, she said. The cabin felt different as soon as she said it. Same walls. Same air. New weight. Fine, I said. Then we fixed the kitchen. She laughed, short and real. We ate dinner at the table with our shoulders almost touching. The threat was not gone. The court date was still ahead of us. Julian still existed out there, now in a holding pattern instead of at my gate. But for the first time, the future I saw in my head was not just lumber and weather reports. It had Elena in it, sitting across from me with her bare feet on the rung of the chair and her hair loose down her back. That night, she did not go up to the guest loft. She stood at the bottom of the stairs and looked up, then looked at my bedroom door, then looked at me. You don't have to decide this tonight, I said. I already did, she said. We did not rush. We moved slow, like people who had already been through enough storms and did not want to turn this into another one. When she finally fell asleep with her head on my shoulder, the cabin felt more like a home than it had in years. The weeks between that night and the trial were long and strange. In the mornings, she worked at the table with her laptop, arguing with people over steel and soil and budgets. Her professional voice was sharp and calm. It made more than one project manager on the other end of the call fall quiet and listen. Sometimes she would look up from a blueprint and ask, if I put a retaining wall here, will the hill slide? I would walk over, lean on the table, and answer, not if you anchor it here. I would tap the page, and she would nod and add notes. In the afternoons, I worked on cabinet doors, roof beams, and the repairs the last storm had demanded. She followed me out sometimes, handing me tools, watching how my hands moved. We ran drills with the radios once a week anyway. She rolled her eyes, but she did it. Crawl space route. Cedar stand route. Ridge route. You really never stop planning, do you? She said one day, breathing hard from a run back up the hill. You are still under my roof, I said. So no. At night we sat on the couch with her feet tucked under my thigh, or on the porch steps with blankets over our shoulders, watching the last of the storm clouds roll past the ridge. Her head would rest against my arm, like it belonged there. Sometimes she would get quiet for a long time. What are you thinking? I would ask. That I never expected to feel this calm again, she said once. Not in this life. I did not have big speeches. I just wrapped my arm around her tighter and kissed the top of her head. The trial came at the end of summer. We drove to Seattle in my truck, her suitcase in the back, my dash cam still running. I hated city traffic. She hated walking into that courthouse. We did both anyway. Inside, everything was glass and marble and echo. She wore a dark suit and low heels, armor back on, but her hand stayed wrapped in mine until the clerk called her name. When she let go, I felt it. Julian sat at the defense table with his lawyer, cuffed but smug, like this was all just a delay for him, not a real threat. He tried to catch her eye when she walked past. She did not look at him. She looked at the judge, at the court reporter, at me. She testified. Calm. Clear. She talked about threats, about money, about the night at the gate. They played the audio from my dash cam. His voice, my voice, the words he could not take back. When it was done, she walked back to the bench and sat down beside me. Her legs were shaking. Her hand was steady when it found mine again. I thought I would fall apart up there, she whispered. You didn't, I said. The judge spoke for a long time. Legal language. Cited charges. Violations. At the end, the sound of the gavel was sharp and final. Protective order extended. Fraud charges moved forward. Bond denied. Julian did not walk out of that room on his own feet. On the drive back up the mountain, the air felt cleaner, even in the traffic. The weight in her shoulders shifted. It did not vanish, but it settled different, like a load finally moved from one joint to another. We got home just before dark. The cabin stood there the same as always, porch light off, trees quiet around it. Elena stood beside the truck and looked at it for a long moment. This place, she said, is the first thing in a long time that felt like it might not leave. It is set in concrete and bedrock, I said. It is not going anywhere. She smiled at that. Neither am I, she said. Fall came. The leaves on the ridge turned gold and red. The air got sharp in the mornings. We fixed the last of the storm damage and then started on the kitchen Elena kept complaining about. She drew up plans that had my work triangle tighter and my storage where it should have been years ago. You are right-handed, she said, tapping the sketch. You should not be crossing yourself every time you chop wood and turn to the stove. It wastes motion. You are bossy, I said. I am right, she answered. We ripped out the old cabinets together, side by side, with dust in our hair. We argued about drawer pulls and counter height, and how many shelves I would actually use. At night, when we were too tired to move, we lay on the couch and watched the fire burn down to coals. Sometimes she fell asleep on my chest. Sometimes I fell asleep with my face in her hair. We still checked the cameras. We still kept the radios charged. The world had not turned soft. It just stopped feeling like it was actively chasing us. Every minute of the day. One night, the first snow dusted the porch. We stood there in our socks, watching flakes hit the boards and melt. This started because I ran, she said quietly. It started because he chased you, I said. She shook her head. I mean here, she said. This cabin. You. I waited. I heard about you before I ever saw you, she said. Up in the city. From a contractor on a job. He said there was this quiet guy in the hills who built a fortress and did not back down for anyone. Not developers. Not rich neighbors. Not weather. Not anyone. She looked up at me, snow catching in her hair. When I decided to get out, I could have gone to a hotel, she said. Or my sister's. Or some random rental. I did not. I got in my car, drove past all of that, and came here. She laid her hand flat on my chest, over my heart. I did not end up on your porch by accident, she said. I came here on purpose. That hit me harder than any storm. I thought about the first time I saw her. Silk camisole, shaking hand, strong voice. I thought about the ammo box, the radio drills, the night at the gate, the courthouse, the kitchen plans spread across my table. All the times I had told myself I did not want people here. You picked a guy who doesn't talk much, I said. I picked a man who means what he says, she replied. And who builds things that do not fall when the wind hits them. I took her hand in mine. I want you here, I said. Not because you are hiding. Because you are choosing this. Choosing me. I am, she said. Her voice did not shake. I kissed her there on the porch, under the first real snow of the season. Slow and certain. Her fingers curled into the front of my shirt. She leaned into me like she had found the center of her map. Inside, the cabin was warm. New counters. New light. Same beams. Same stone fireplace. Later, when she fell asleep in our bed with one hand still resting on my chest, I stared up at the ceiling and listened to the quiet. Her first words to me had been, "I have nowhere to go." Now, when she woke up tangled in my arms and looked at me with sleepy eyes, she said something else. "I am exactly where I want to be," she whispered. For a man who once built a fortress to keep the world out, there was no better feeling than knowing that the person he had let in was standing there not because she had to, but because she chose to.
If this story stayed with your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Thank you.